What's up, everybody? It's me, Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new meta agent tier list, where we're gonna bring you the best and worst agents to play from the top of the meta and talk about what characters are dominating and what characters are simply lackluster. Now, speaking of dominating, SkillCapped has helped more players than ever climb to their all-time peak. If you are really struggling in the game, you want to improve really rapidly on an agent, or if you want to get better as a whole, then SkillCapped will quickly get you there with a roadmap of improvement that is sure to help you. Plus, our private Discord coaching has been more popular than ever. So what are you waiting for? Stop being hard stuck and check it out in the links down below. Now, from a lot of the recent pro matches, which is where we find metas from, we see some characters just not see any play. For either map-based reasons or power level-based reasons, these characters are being almost completely abandoned, if not just not played at all. And there's actually some surprising characters here. Now, I will put these characters in the F tier, but realize that this is only from a meta perspective and not necessarily for your ranked games. First off, at a fat 0% in the last chance qualifiers for North America, we have Sage. Sage saw no play, and that's pretty crazy considering she used to be like a slam dunk pick for maps like Split, but these days she just doesn't see any play on that map, and really the only map that she sees consistent play on is Icebox, which is just not in the map pool right now. So when you take a character that is pretty niche, has one map she's good in, and that map isn't in the map pool, she's just not going to see any play. Now, I do think that Sage has gotten the short end of the stick with nerf after nerf after nerf over her life cycle, but one of the reasons that Sage is still balanced in her current state is her ranked win rate is actually quite high. Riot actually shared their inner statistics and told us that Sage has quite a high win rate across most ranks, so even though she's not seeing any pro play, doesn't mean that she won't win you a game or two in your games. Speaking of ranked versus pro play, the next three characters are characters that are all pub stompers for ranked, but not really that great in coordinated settings. We have Phoenix, Reyna, and Neon, all with 0% pick rate. Now, specifically, Reyna and Phoenix, these characters are very good in ranked play. If you're the best player in the lobby, they give you a lot of ways to either get kills or force your way onto site all by yourself. But when you think about being a cog in a machine and a composition having tools to do certain things, these characters just fall flat. Reyna is a character that doesn't get to do anything unless you're clicking heads. And if you're clicking heads, then you're winning anyways. It's like a pub stomper slash win more character. And then Phoenix is a character that is a jack of all trades. He can do a lot of different things, but he's not really good at any one thing, and that makes him good in ranked but really poor in coordinated play or meta play. Now, Neon is also seeing 0% pick rate in this particular tournament, but she does typically get a tiny bit of pick rate on maps like Lotus and Fracture in combination with a character like Breach. She does work specifically in that combo, but most of the time there are better characters that would set up better with you even if you're initiating a character in, like Raze or Jet. And Neon definitely fights the meta in a very different place, but not as strong as many of the other competitive options. I do think that if you're a movement god for rank, you can definitely climb with this character, but as far as meta is concerned, she's rather niche. Now, the last character that didn't see any play is Gecko. And Gecko is a little bit of an anomaly, a character that is obviously powerful, but hasn't really been around all that long. I do imagine that this character will pick up more play over time, but the problem is for his role, the initiator role, it's so goddamn competitive. Like, there's just way too many characters in that role that all seem like they could see substantial play, whether it's Fade, Breach, Sova, or of course Skye. All these characters are really hard to not pick and pick Gecko instead, and I think that's just a testament to how competitive that role is. All the characters are absolute bangers, so that a character like Gecko doesn't really see that much play and is left hanging. Now, if that was the F tier, let's talk about the C tier, and we're moving quite a bit up. These are characters that saw a little bit of play, but there's just more competitive options right now, and these characters aren't taking over the meta or anything like that. First off, we do gotta talk about Yoru. There was an all-star moment recently where in the final match, Sentinels versus 100 Thieves both locked Yoru, Tens, and Asuna played it against each other, and that was just ridiculous, but completely out of left field. I do think while Yoru does have potential, if you have someone playing Yoru that is an absolute demon, for coordinated play, he's pretty hard to synergize around, and even the best teams in the world have trouble doing it. But of course, if you become an absolute god in rank, ranked with Yoru, you can dominate, and it shows that Yoru actually has a negative win rate in most ranks to play, but once he gets to Radiant, he actually has one of the highest win rates, which is crazy. It just shows that when players really master this character, he's a ranked god. And yeah, for pro play, not so much, but he can be good in ranked if you learn and earn the skills to play him properly. Now, we also got to talk about Fade, a character that did see a tiny bit of play on maps like Lotus and maps like Fracture. And while I do think this character is actually fairly strong, she suffers from a lot of the same problems that Gecko suffers from, which is that role being too damn competitive. Like, there's just too many other characters that you would rather pick in the initiator category than Fade. And you're not doing double initiator nearly as much because the duelists are also really, really strong right now. So yeah, it's hard to fit her in a composition. She's fine. I think in rank, she can do the job. And in a lot of ways, she can be better than some of the alternatives because she punishes people that play in really bad positions a lot easier with her dog and her eye. But most of the time, this character is going to be a worse character than the other initiators in a coordinated setting. Now, the last character I wanted to talk about is Cypher. Once again, we're kind of in the same ballpark. It's all about competition. I mean, I really gotta stress this point. Characters only see play or don't see play based on what is the character that could replace them in their spot. Like, what is the alternative? And for Cypher, he has one of the best characters in the game as his alternative, Killjoy. So, of course, he's not going to see a dominant amount of play. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't see any play. He does see a decent amount of play on Fracture here and there. Sometimes he sees bind play. And as players get less disciplined, he gets better, right? As players don't clear out his utility nearly as much, he's going to be more and more consistent value, which means the worse and worse opponents you're up against, the better and better he becomes. And I do think that if they wanted him to see consistent play, they would need to give him some way to actually further counter people that are disciplined in clearing all his utility. But if you do that, you might make him too strong for the lower ranks of play. So it's a pretty tricky spot with balance on Cypher, and I don't know what I would do at all. Let me know down below how you would balance Cypher if you wanted to buff him. Now, we do got to talk about characters that are all eating up a decent amount of pick rate, you know, something between the 15 and the 20%. And there's quite a bit of characters in here. I would put these characters in the C tier because they see a decent amount of play, but it's not that reliable. First off, we do got to talk about Chamber, where Chamber's actually surprisingly seeing a little bit of play, Haven, Bind, a little bit of Split. I think that it's more about people that are really specialists on this character that are playing him more than anything. But I actually do think that he's pretty good at controlling certain areas of the map, taking a lot of aggressive map control and giving information to his team while simultaneously potentially winning more duels than average. I do think that on top of that, he's very underplayed for how good he is in ranked, where the community perceives Chamber as a lot weaker than he is. And there's no reason that a lot of the stuff that old Chamber used to do, like op people or deagle people in the head over and over again, isn't possible now. And that's really what he got away with most in ranked. But then he got weaker in pro play, and then people just stopped playing him nearly as much in ranked, where I don't think that the huge nerfs that hit him actually affected ranked Chamber as much as it did pro play Chamber. He's still a really good pick, maybe not for ranked play though. Next off, about 15%, we got to talk about Breach, which sees almost no play except on Fracture, and he could go from 15% all the way up to 30% hypothetically. He could be more a B tier character depending on the map pool. Mainly, he only really sees substantial play on Fracture, which is like maxed out, and Haven. So if those maps are played a lot, he's going to have a really high pick rate, and if those maps are not played that much, he's just not going to be that good. I do think that he's a great character to have in your back pocket to play on the maps he's good in, but he's not very flexible in his design or his power, where you're kind of limited on the maps that he's good in, and I wouldn't suggest playing him on the maps that don't synergize with his kit. So yeah, I do think that one-tricking this character is quite a bit harder than it would be with other characters. Now, last up in the C tier, I do want to talk about KO. KO sees substantial play on Ascent, decent on Fracture, and I think this character is very strong, brings a ton of power to the table. Right now, severely lacking in pick rate, mainly due to how competitive some of the top level options are. Keep in mind that right now, we're in a meta where things are getting solved more and more, and the top characters that are played a ridiculous amount right now. We're not really seeing a meta where a lot of things are viable. We're seeing a meta where very few things are super dominant, and that basically cuts away everything else, even though some of these characters are played every once in a while. Now, I do think that this character is actually better in coordinated play than ranked. According to Riot, actually has a low win rate, and I would say that if you're going to play him, better in a duo and try to set up flash plays and coordination if possible. Then the last character in the C tier, we do got to talk about Harbor. Seeing a lot of play on maps like Pearl, not much else, but Pearl Pearl is just a really great map for him. He's seeing a ton of play there. He does see a little bit of play on Bind at times, and I do think that this character is fairly niche but strong in the maps that he's good in. Overall, though, this character is only going to be played in a duo controller setup, so that means he's never going to be like a slam dunk pick, especially in ranked, because good luck getting 2 controllers, but he's very good at what he does as a very strong role filler. Now, moving on up to the B tier, these are characters that do see substantial play, are strong, and have the potential to fluctuate into the A tier. Right now, they're not seeing as much play as they usually do, mainly because of the map pool or because of competition in the agents that are played. First off, let's talk about Brimstone. Great on Fracture, great on Bind, could be an amazing character, but he has Omen, who's competing with a lot of his pick rate, and Viper and Harbor combos with Astra combos are better on a lot of other maps, leaving only select maps for Brim. He's still a great character, but he's niche in the maps that he's played on, but it's a little bit more than Harbor is, so I would say that he's a tier above Harbor. Not to mention for ranked play, he can definitely be your solo controller, and he's really great for players to play when you aren't a controller main, but you want to play something that is easy or intuitive to use, can bring a lot of sustainable value, and is just a great flex pick to have in your back pocket. Now, the next character we have in the B tier is Sova. Don't worry about him being like a little bit lower than normal. Right now, we're just in a meta where things are kind of being stacked up, like I said before, and there's another initiator that is just seeing a crazy amount of play that Sova is kind of getting cut. A lot of his pick rate is getting cut. Now, I will say that he's still amazing on Ascent, amazing on Haven, and I do think that generally he's one of the best agents you can play in ranked play, so I would ignore this ranked stat right now. It wouldn't surprise me if a slight nerf to a different competitive option in the future skyrockets Sova to like the top of the pick rate again. He's a character that is always going to be in the metasphere. Now, I do feel a little strange because I'm moving on to the A tier, but I'm only going to put 2 characters in the A tier. Maybe I should have smashed some of the other characters upwards, but there are legit 5 characters in the S tier because of how much they're seeing play. But yeah, let's talk about the A tier first. First off, let's talk about Omen. Omen, Lotus, Ascent, Haven. He's a very strong character. He's always been a very strong character. He's good on some maps that Brimstone is not, on the solo controller maps. And in addition to that, he's seeing some dual controller setups on maps like Lotus. And I do think that Omen is just incredibly powerful for both pro play and ranked play. He's probably one of the best characters to play in ranked play. Just being able to lurk and do your job at the same time, cut off rotations, make people rotate slower. There's a lot of things about Omen that's amazing. I think that he's S tier for ranked play, but he's just A tier for pro play right now in his current state. But like I said, small tweaks to characters could all of a sudden skyrocket him, just like Sova, to the top of the meta. So don't sleep on those 2 characters in particular. I do think that they're actually lower placed now than they are on average, or they will be probably in a couple of months. The next up, we do got to talk about Astra. Astra also in the A tier, seeing a maxed out amount of play on Split in dual controller setups, seeing a ton of play on Haven as well, and seeing various smatterings of play in various maps like Pearl and Lotus and Bind. And I do think that this is a character that is gonna shine really hard in pro play, especially when we're seeing these dual controller setups. But for ranked play, yeah, this character is really hard to set up. Not only do you need a second controller, which you're never guaranteed, but the synergy and the coordination, the higher that is, the better and better this character is, which, as you know, in ranked play is less and less. So while this character is a dominant and important part of the meta, it's not going to be indicative of the games that you're playing. And I think that's why it's really important to take tier list with a grain of salt. Just because this is the meta and what is the strongest in the meta doesn't really mean it's going to always affect the games you're playing. And when you have a core part like Astra that is probably going to be missing more or less from most ranks in most ranked play, the meta could change completely. So keep that in mind. Now, that being said, these last 5 characters are slam dunks for the S tier. In both ranked and pro play, these are the best characters you could be playing, period. First off, we gotta talk about Jett, seeing above a 50% pick rate, seeing a lot of play on Split, Pearl maxed out pick rate, Ascent maxed out pick rate, Haven almost maxed out pick rate. I mean, this character is insanely strong. And Jett is a cornerstone of the meta right now. I'm sure you know that she's played in almost every game of ranked as well. She's just amazing, from winning more duels than average, being better on an eco, and allowing you to engage onto a site very cleanly when led by some form of initiator utility. Jett is kind of that cornerstone tone and game plan of every single team composition that is just needed and strong, and Jet isn't going anywhere. S tier pick through and through. Next up, we do got to talk about Killjoy, who's just an absolute titan right now. 100% pick rate on Pearl, Lotus, Ascent, and Haven, and 50% pick rate on Fracture. This character is just dominating everything, and it's one of the strongest characters to play in ranked play, the strongest sentinel by a large margin for pro play, incredibly consistent and powerful, is the cornerstone of every team's defensive strategy. While Jet might be the cornerstone for most teams' offensive strategy, Killjoy just locks down sites on defense, is great at denying flanks, is really a solid character that allows teams to cheat on their position on certain sites, and I do think that all in all, this character is just like insanely strong. The next up, we do got to talk about Raze, and Raze is seeing a maxed out pick rate on Split, on Lotus, on freaking Fracture, almost a maxed out pick rate on Bind. I mean, this character is kind of, along with Jet, a really strong offensive and defensive character that fits any team composition as part of their site taking plan, retake plan, delay plan. I mean, this character just fights on a certain axis that is unlike any other character. Very strong, and surprisingly even, I think this character is even stronger for ranked play, even though they're one of the best characters in the game for pro play, which just speaks a lot to how strong this character can be with that diverse movement, your ability to get free value and picks, take sites aggressively. I really do think that this character is insanely strong, and the stats just don't lie here. Play this character. If you don't know what other duels to play, this is the one I would suggest you pick up. The next up, we do gotta talk about Viper. 65% pick rate. Just, I mean, come on. She's seeing play like everywhere. Split, Pearl, Lotus, Bind. Now, Ascent, Fracture, and Haven, not so much. But because she's seeing so much play on those other maps, and the map pool favors her right now, I mean, even though that Breeze is not in the pool, which, of course, she would see maxed out pick rate on as well. So, really, Viper's insane. The thing about Viper, and this is something that I've repeated throughout the video, is it comes down to competition. And the only other non-dome smoker, line smoker, which is Harbor, cannot be played solo. He has to be played with another controller. So when you look at what she could do, and you look at the maps that they need that effect on, she's irreplaceable. That's why she has such a high pick rate, because she's irreplaceable. Unlike the initiator role that has a lot of characters that can do similar things that are always competing for each other, whether that's Skye, Sova, Fade, whatever, or the duelist role that have a lot of different duelists that are strong in certain ways, Viper is just kind of unparalleled here, where she is just the slam dunk character to always play. It would be kind of like if Jet and Raze, there was only one of them, right? Instead of both of them, where they both have a lot of pick rate, they're both S tier, but they do split some pick rate at times. Imagine if only one of them existed, and then that person would just eat up all the pick rate. That would kind of be how Viper is now, and Viper is just needed. She's not even insane or strong or powerful. She's just flat out necessary, and that's why she's number 2 on this list. But number 1, at a 70% pick rate, seeing play on almost every single map, maxed out pick rate on almost every single map, it's Skye. Now, right now, we're basically in a Skye meta, where teams are building their entire play, their entire composition around Skye. She can allow your duelists to take site very aggressively with combinations of bird flying in and like a double satchel or a dash, which is really strong. She's great at finding information, and she gets it on a recurring timeline with her bird that gets back that recharge after a certain amount of time. And in addition to that, Dog is a great way to clear certain cubbies and things like that. And you combine that all together with her heal that is really great on pistol rounds, where pistol rounds convert to a lot of games win over time, and an ultimate that is a really strong ultimate for taking site and aggressively taking retakes or just a lot of different things. Her ultimate is very solid. You bring a character that just brings so much to so many different aspects of a team that she's the clear winner in the initiator category by a mile. And it's one of the only reasons that characters like Sova right now are lagging behind in pick rate. It's just because Skye is so damn good. She's eating it all up. But if you want to master any of these characters, SkillCapped is only a click away. Well, we have in-depth guides, radiant guides over every single agent. So if you really want to climb very quickly and just climb the ladder, check it out right now in the links down below.